Hey everybody, it's Shaman Sister Sin, and you're listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. That's me, Little Shaman. Today I want to talk to you about taking the blame for the narcissist. It's a very common issue in narcissistic relationships, and I wanted to talk about that on the show today. Pathologically narcissistic people are the blame-shifting masters. You can ask them a simple question about whether they took the trash out or not, and suddenly it's a 2-hour diatribe about how you make them feel so worthless, or how controlling you are, or how bossy, or how you won't give them any peace. Or maybe you'll get frozen out with cold silence, or be the subject of passive-aggressive comments, looks, and gestures for the next 3 days. It doesn't matter what the subject is, what the circumstances are, or how it happened. It's not the narcissist's fault. It's your fault. Even if it's nobody's fault, it's your fault. Even if you weren't there. Even if you weren't involved. Even if you weren't born yet. It's your fault. Even if they've been acting like this their entire life, and you've only known them for the past 2 years. Doesn't matter. It's your fault. The reason for this is very simple. Pathologically narcissistic people cannot accept blame. The idea that they have done something wrong, have a flaw, or have made a mistake is unacceptable to them, and they will do whatever they have to do in order to prevent themselves from having to believe it. If they have to lie or twist things completely, they will do so. Unfortunately, because everybody on the planet makes mistakes and has flaws, this means always needing somebody to blame. Pathologically narcissistic people are possessed by the idea that perfection is the only measure of worth. If something's not perfect, it's worthless. This includes themselves. Most of their energy is taken up with trying to advance this false image of themselves as always perfect and always correct, because it's the only way they feel they're worthy of anything. If they can convince others that they're perfect, they can then believe it themselves, and they'll be able to create self-worth and self-esteem from the reflection of their own perfection from other people. If they can't do that, then they have no self-worth at all. The end run around this is that if something is demonstrably their fault, if they cannot get out of it, it must have been caused by somebody else. This way, they are still not imperfect because they were sabotaged. This relieves the large amount of anxiety they feel for not being perfect. Unfortunately, while the narcissistic person might feel better, this creates a situation in which the person they are blaming and accusing of sabotage is under enormous stress. They are constantly being accused, berated, and harassed, not because they've actually done anything wrong, but because the narcissistic person in their lives can't tolerate the idea that they're not flawless. Dealing with narcissistic people is existing in a world where you can never be right because the narcissist can never be wrong. They are unable to create their own self-worth or self-esteem. It has to come from or at the expense of someone else. Therefore, they can't be good unless someone else is bad. They cannot be right unless somebody else is wrong. They can't be smart unless somebody else is stupid. They cannot be a victim unless somebody else is abusive. They cannot be perfect unless somebody else is flawed. Other people exist in the narcissist world to take the blame, to feed them esteem, and to fulfill their needs. That's all. There is no room for another person in this world. The narcissist's dysfunctional ego takes up too much space. It's like a vacuum, sucking up everything until there's just nothing left. Continuous blame and repeated assignment of motives to you that you do not have wears somebody down. People begin to believe that it's hopeless, that this person is never going to know them or believe them. Worse, they might even begin to believe that these things are true and somehow they just can't see it. This can be very damaging to a person's self-worth and their self-image. Remember that if you are dealing with this situation, it's abnormal. Nothing that's happening is fair or okay. It's not normal for someone to be unable to accept responsibility for anything ever. It's not typical for someone to insist you are constantly doing things you're not doing. It is not usual for someone to know you for years but still not seem to understand what kind of person you are. It's not normal for someone to set you up for failure or use you to make themselves feel better. None of these things happen in healthy situations. Some people don't like the word normal. If you don't like the word normal, use healthy, because it's the same thing. These things are unhealthy and they do not happen in healthy situations. The conditioning that results from dealing with narcissistic people can be tough to break, especially because many people in these situations with narcissists who are not family members were already conditioned by a family situation or a narcissistic parent when they were young. But it doesn't have to stay that way. You can break free of the guilt and the responsibility. You have been asked to carry these things unfairly, and it's okay to put them down. You don't have to be perfect. You still have worth, even though you have flaws. You still have value, even though you make mistakes. It's okay to be human. It's okay to take care of yourself. It's okay to say no. Guilt is self-punishment. Don't you think you've been punished enough? People often want to know how to let go of the guilt or stop carrying responsibility for other people's feelings or lives. There's no real trick to this, and there's no easy way out. You have to accept that you're not responsible for the life, feelings, thoughts, opinions, or failures of other people. Most importantly, you have to give up the illusion of control. You cannot control other people or their feelings or their thoughts, and you cannot fix them. It's harder than it sounds, but it's easier than you think. Journaling can help. Making lists can help, such as making a list of the things you're responsible for and the things you're not responsible for. Writing things down often really helps get them into your brain. You can write your feelings down and then burn the paper. I actually have an episode of the show that demonstrates how to do that, and it does work very well. Mostly, it's about retraining your mind to think differently. This is a pattern that you got into. It's a habit, and you have to break it. You do that by retraining your mind to think differently and practicing good boundaries. That's really, really important, and I do have a few episodes of the show about that. The things you're responsible for are your problem. The things other people are responsible for are their problem. That's it. There's nothing more to it than that. If it sounds simple, that's because it is. It's your own guilt and conditioning that are making you think otherwise. Asserting boundaries and letting people worry about their own problems does not mean you don't care or that you've become callous and hard. It means you're going to let other people take responsibility for their own lives while you take care of yours. Anything else is not only unfair, but it's not sustainable. It can't work. Look at it like this. You have been carrying the emotional load for this person for a long time. Is it working out? Are they happy? Are you? If a friend were to ask you right now what justifications you can make that excuse why you are carrying all the load here and the narcissistic person is carrying none, what would you say? What reasons can you give that will explain and justify why their feelings, needs, and well-being are more important than yours? Why do you deserve no consideration or respect? Why are you okay with being dismissed? These are hard and they're painful, but these are the questions that need to be answered so you can understand why this situation was created and how it can be prevented in the future. By answering these questions, you will find out what the underlying issues are, and that is what needs to be worked on. Probably the most important lesson that we can learn from narcissists in our lives is that there are problems that you can't fix. There are situations you cannot control. There are people you can't help. There are things that you're not going to get, even though you might deserve them. And you know what? That's okay. It sucks, but it's okay. So work on letting go of the conditioning that makes you believe the world is on your shoulders. It's not. Let go of the fear that pushes you to try to control other people. You can't. Give up the slavery to perfection. It's impossible. If you have really truly wronged somebody, apologize. Do what you can to make amends and work on forgiving yourself, because living with guilt and shame and regret from the past does nothing but impede your future. It can destroy your future if you can't move on. Move forward, live intentionally, and resolve to do better. When we know better, we do better. Learning how to let go of situations that are unhealthy or that we can't change and move on is a very, very important lesson. And it's one that can really bring you true peace. We can only control ourselves, but that is a very powerful thing because it's really all we need to be able to do. Once we realize that we cannot control other people, and possibly more importantly, that they can't control us, life becomes a lot less complicated and a lot more peaceful. True freedom is letting go. I hope this clears a few things up for you. As always, I look forward to your comments, questions, and suggestions, so please keep those coming. I take appointments now over the phone or over the internet. If you'd like to schedule an appointment with me, visit littleshaman.org and click the bookings tab. You can follow the link in the information section of this video to go ahead and do that. You've been listening to the Meditations and More podcast brought to you by littleshaman.org. May the Great Spirit bless you and have a wonderful day.